Aramco, I guess you could say, bombing that
Yeah.
happened like I don't know, 6 to 10 kilometers or miles from the track while they were doing their practice sessions. And it was so close that Max even said on his onboard that he could smell something burning, and he didn't know, like, obviously, that there was something that just happened. So he's like wondering, probably, like, is my car burning? Like, what's going on
Yeah.
here? So yeah, any thoughts on that and what it led to with the drivers and the team principals and the whole decision that they had to make?
Yeah. I think that onboard of Max asking if his engine was burning or if something was burning, that's really just really eerie, because then you hear, I don't know if it was Christian or a Red Bull engineer, but you can go, it's not the car. That's all they say. You're just like, and I remember being like, oh, I was like, wonder what that is. But then you see the picture of George doing his, practice lap, and you just see a huge cloud of smoke behind him. It's horrifying. I understand the team principles moving forward, because it sadly kind of, Toto said that he was like, this is just basically the reality of living here, or racing here. This is just sort of what you have to accept. And he's right. But then that brings the question, should you be racing there at all? Because, I mean, we canceled Russia because of the obvious conflict that's going on, but then we're just proudly racing in Saudi Arabia when there's human rights issues. This was a whole topic a couple of months ago when they were in Jeddah at the end of last season. But I just personally think Jeddah just shouldn't. It just doesn't fit Formula One to me. It's too, there's too much risk involved to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's a fun track to play in the video game. It's a fun track to
Yes,
watch. Like, quali is very exciting, but it's like guaranteed at least one safety car. We didn't get a red flag
surprisingly.
this week, but yeah, it's kind of like a bad situation waiting to happen. And yes, it was a little more tame having it at the start of the season, but there's just too many on the, like, knife's edge moments where guys are just so close to going off, or just so many things that there's close to being incidents. And that's just the track. Then you bring in the whole human rights and everything that's going on
Yeah,
outside of it, and the certain comments that are made towards guys like Lewis Hamilton, and just so much going on in that part of the world that it doesn't really seem right to me that they're rewarded, you could say, with an F1 race. Yeah, it just doesn't seem right.
definitely not. And I understand that it's a difficult situation because there's a lot of like Saudi Arabian people involved in the FIA. There's just so many moving parts and so many different ways to look at it. You can't just say we're not racing here. And I do know there was the talk about, there was like a rumor going around that there was like, I don't know if it was one of the engineers, but basically somebody saying that they were told that if they decided to not race and to not participate after the attack, that they may have trouble leaving the country. And to my understanding, that's not true. I don't think it's that, war torn there that they're going to like prevent them from leaving the country, but it's still like terrible situation. Unfortunately, the sport just is always involved, or just not necessarily involved, but just like secondhand involved in some sort of conflict. So I would like to see this track not come back.
Yeah, no, I agree. The focus should be on the racing and on
Yep.
the drivers, but it wasn't. So yeah, the drivers, in the aftermath of that, they had a meeting. First, the team principals came out and said, like, no, we're racing no matter what. And then the drivers had a meeting for 4 hours. It's quite a long meeting. Would have liked to be a fly on the wall for that. From what I've read, at one point, all 20 drivers were against racing, and then it kind of moved down to five or six that were against it very strongly. And then the team principals came in, and I don't know what exactly was said, but they went racing, obviously.
Yeah. That's part of the sport, but it's also, I just really feel for those guys because I was stressed. Just the idea that the risk that something could happen shouldn't be there. There should never be a risk that an attack could happen. There's too many risk factors. It's just, I totally side and understand the drivers that didn't want to do it, because I wouldn't want to. And seeing like the fans, uh specifically, like during some of the shots, they would show like the crowds, and there were like families that were obviously vacationing and taking a trip to see the race, like
Mhm.
with their kids. It was just like wild. I'm like, y'all, there's like bombing's happening. Like, what are you doing there?